Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nickel Matara, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
And welcome to episode number 122 of Something Else. Feast your hair holes on this week's episode as we take a look at Mid-South Wrestling and World Class Championship Wrestling from September 10th, 1983. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the vertebreaker on a cinder block to my unprotected chair shot to the head. It's Trae. Trae, how you doing today?
Oh man, that was I still, every time I close my eyes, I see that horrible, disgusting scrape that Hangman got on his back from that cinder block.
So obviously we're talking about the All Out show. For those who didn't see it, I gotta say this: I liked the main event. I really, really did until the last 45 seconds. Because there was a 1-2 punch of unnecessariness, in my not so humble opinion. Like they didn't fucking need that. Like, in no fucking universe did we need the fucking hypodermic needle through Swerve's lip. Like, even if you want to argue the ensuing, unprotected chair shot to the head, I would vehemently disagree, but if you wanted to argue, I'd even give you a point for that. But there is zero that you could say that would defend the hypodermic needle through the lip part.
Yeah, I would not have been bothered by the unprotected chair shot if they hadn't done the hypodermic needle. That was a lot. It was like, I don't know, it didn't ruin it for me. Like, to me, I was watching it and I'm thinking, about 4.5. And then after that, I'm like, okay, 4.
Yeah, it's like, I like, and it's funny because like that, like, it was a really good show. I thought. All Out in general, like, and we were talking during the show, and I said, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but a match featuring Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, Orange Cassidy, and Mark Briscoe could not follow Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander.
It was a hell of a match. There was a lot of really good matches on the show. I mean, for the main card, my lowest rating was 3.5. So that's an embarrassment of riches.
I do want to give a shout out to my most famous friend in the world, Aubrey Edwards, for being the referee for that Pac Ospreay match. I told her, I told her earlier today, I'm like, I'm super fucking jealous of you, not because I wanted to be the referee, but because she had the best seat in the house for that match. That
was a hell of a match. And Will Ospreay fella is pretty good at this pro wrestling bullshit, I think.
I've noticed that, and like, it's almost hilarious how he's pretty much had a match of the year candidate every time he wrestles.
That's just it's just another day of the week for him. He does that shit in his sleep.
I told Aubrey too that like the opening opening sequence of the match, I was just sitting here staring with my jaw dropped in amazement. And I looked over at Aubrey standing by the ropes, and she was pretty much standing there with her jaw dropped in amazement. And
I cannot say that I have watched every great wrestler ever, but I will say that I have watched a significant amount of every great wrestler in the US, Canada, and Japan of the last 40 years or so. And I have never seen anybody so consistently and effortlessly great as Will Ospreay.
So the VCC, is the VCC done, do you think, or does Moxley, Claudio, Pac, and Marina Shafir become the new VCC? And then Wheeler, and if Wheeler's even still a part of this whole thing with Danielson, or if that's just Wheeler's going to do his own thing now. And then, Danielson doing his own thing where he beats everybody involved.
Yeah, I could absolutely see I could see them keeping the name, or I could just see them changing the name, and either way it's cool. I liked that Wheeler didn't turn on him. I like that they seem to be keeping Wheeler babyface. I have sort of I'm one of the freaks who's a regular Rampage viewer, and I've kind of really enjoyed the little story that they've been getting where Bryan, as he gets closer to retirement, is sort of taking an increased interest in Yuta, seems to have bequeathed the cattle mutilation on him. So I hope this is going to be good things for Yuta. They've got to resolve the issue of Pat, Claudio, and Yuta being trios champions. They've got to resolve a lot of issues now. I like this group. I really like Marina Shafir as part of this group. I'm a sucker. Like, I'm an Enochiist at heart. So like MMA fighters that do pro wrestling, if they do it remotely well at all, I tend to really like it. So I kind of like her more than most.
So that 2001, 2002 New Japan period when they went nosediving in popularity, that was your favorite part.
Okay, I'm not quite that era. I started watching New Japan about 2003, 2004, which was still that era. So I understand the complaints about it, but I have a soft spot for that era.
I started watching New Japan in 2013, so just after Dave started raving about everything they did, but just before the New Japan boom happened. And like one of the first things I saw was fucking Daniel Gracie and the other Gracie brother, whose name escapes me at the moment. And I'm like,
Hollis.
Yes. I'm like, holy shit, this was bad.
Yeah, I MMA fighters turned pro wrestlers.
Yes.
Not so much jiu-jitsu guys who can't really do pro wrestling.
Indeed. So I was actually, the funny thing was about the Yuta and the whole BCC turn last night was when Yuta and Claudio had their match with the Young Bucks, they said that Yuta was still the student of the BCC. And I'm like, dude, he's been in the fucking group for over 2 years. At what point does he stop being the student? And I'm like, man, I hope we get a backstage skit where we get the BCC graduation ceremony where Wheeler's no longer a student. And sadly, we're never going to have that segment. Much like how the Outrunners were not left in the same spot that they were on Friday all throughout Saturday.
I was because we had joked about, well, did they come to Collision just to beat up the Outrunners? And then it had been almost the entire pay-per-view, and I was gonna joke, man, I guess they came to Chicago just to beat up the Outrunners, and then that was right before Moxley came out to do the angle with Bryan. But I kind of been having, because they have been teasing since the build to Blood and Guts or Anarchy in the Arena, that they've been teasing Claudio having issues with Bryan. So I get Claudio being in with Moxley, and I think like, okay, Danielson's gonna wrestle Moxley. It'll be great, and I'm not gonna be upset at all if Jon Moxley wins the world championship again. I think he's pretty fucking fantastic. I think Terry Funk is the greatest wrestler of all time, and I think Jon Moxley's the closest we're ever gonna get to Terry Funk.
Did you notice that when Claudio turned on him, because it was Claudio the one that did the first strike, Danielson started laughing. Like even he couldn't believe this was happening.
But I was gonna say, like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was like, I imagine we're at least gonna get a Danielson match against Pac and a Danielson match versus Claudio as well.
Yeah.
So that may just be your next 3 pay-per-view world title matches, and you finish with Moxley, at World's End, and you could have that be the Danielson loses to retire match, or not retire but stop wrestling a full-time schedule and go get his neck fixed match.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do, but I had the thought before this happened that like if I wouldn't hate it if Claudio got that belt,
Mm-hmm.
and
No,
I think that Claudio is like, he is somehow universally appreciated by fans and by his peers, and I still think he's underrated.
I do think
fantastic.
I do think, as much as I think Claudio would have a fantastic run as champion, that they would, at this point, they would have to give him a renewed push for a good 3 to 6 months before seriously putting the title on at this point. Because remember, the Swerve Strickland of October of last year was not a future AEW world champion. It was the Hangman feud that was around that time that got him to that next level. And Claudio, he needs a Hangman feud, not necessarily a feud with Hangman, although that wouldn't necessarily be bad, but a feud that takes him to that next level. You're like, okay, that's the next world champion right there. But
yeah, I agree. I'm down with that.
Oh yeah, I'm happy it didn't happen. But when the whole angle got set up that it was Christian coming out to cash in Money in the Bank, and the BCC stopped him and backed them all down, once the BCC killed Bryan Danielson and choked him out with the bag, I was more like, okay, so where's Christian now?
He pissed his pants when he saw Jon Moxley. He had to go change.
Yeah. And that, honestly, it's like, I hate that stipulation even more now. I didn't really care for it that much when we were just going to get the mystery Money in the Bank cash in for Christian. But now that Danielson actually has a nice meaty feud, now we're going to do the looking over your shoulders constantly to see Christian cash in at some point. Every time Danielson has a tough match, it's like, okay, it's in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, Christian's going to come out now and challenge for the world title or something. And everything is I don't believe he's going to win. I would be shocked if Christian won the title. And maybe that's why they didn't have him. Maybe that's the reason why he didn't come out at the end last night, because at that point he would have had to win if he did, and he wasn't going to win.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know. I think Christian's pretty great too, so I'm like, we'll see what happens.
This is not saying Christian's not great, but just, I don't want to see him as the world champion. It's like, but oh well. By the way, when the fuck is Adam Cole coming back? I kind of thought he was pretty much back to full health when they did the angle at Double or Nothing with him and MJF, but that was the last time he's been on the show.
See, I think they did that angle because there's no timetable for him coming back, and there's still they just wanted to kind of get that out of mind so they could turn MJF heel again. They asked, so there was a little, it was a very nondescript media scrum last night, because they just did they did a little bit of the it was a little bit of a pre-show with RJ City, Lexi Nair, Daddy Magic. Evil Uno came out for a while, and so they asked Evil Uno about Adam Cole because they do the AEW Games podcast together, and he just said, yeah, he seems in good spirits, but there doesn't seem to be any timetable. So I don't know. I hope he's able to come back soon. Adam Cole a lot.
Honestly, I kept expecting it ever since MJF started doing the Panama Sunrise, because I'm like, okay, this is Cole now. Cole's going to come back as a babyface, even though his entire group are still heels. But I mean, it's AEW, and for the most part, that babyface heel line is a bit blurred. I mean, how many times has the BCC turned heel now? I mean, this is at least the third time. But still, it's like, I was expecting it, but and I guess he's not ready, but it's kind of weird. And I guess if the whole point is he is going to come back to face to feud with MJF's going to film a movie, and so he's not going to be around for a little bit, in theory.
Yeah. Well,
which
I don't
know. I mean, I get it that Daniel Garcia hasn't officially re-signed his contract yet, so they changed the finish of the match to Garcia losing, then laying out MJF at the end. It's like they should have changed the whole fucking match at that point, because I complained about this. That was the wrong match, because and I guess I don't know how you could have done it to have MJF win at the end anyway, but Daniel Garcia, this is his big revenge. He got laid out in his hometown in front of his mom, taken out on a stretcher, the injury angle of all injury angles. He comes back, and then MJF kicks his ass for 80% of the match and then wins at the end.
Well, clearly that wasn't his big revenge.
I'd be in shock and awe if he gets any more revenge.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd be willing to bet you $1 that if Garcia resigns and when MJF comes back, that Garcia turns heel and aligns with MJF.
Oh, that'd be so shitty. Oh my god. Oh.
Honestly, I love Tony. I'm happy that AEW exists and it's own unique version of pro wrestling. But these angles and storylines have become way too WWE for my taste at this point. And it's not even the good WWE or the moderately good WWE, depending on what you consider modern day to be. This is Tony saw Randy Orton burn down Bray Wyatt's house and thought, hey, we should do this on our show. This whole Swerve Hangman feud, it's been one WWE angle after another, and it's because I joke about the time Swerve menaced Hangman's baby in Virginia and Hangman ran from the building in Philadelphia to go stop him, which was a takeoff of one time on Raw when Eric Bischoff broke into the McMahon's house to make out with Linda, and Shane McMahon at Raw in the Midwest somewhere ran from the building to go attack Eric Bischoff and save his mom.
It's very silly. I think this is some random silly thing that I want to point out. Kazuchika Okada defended the Continental title in a 4-way match against Orange Cassidy, Konosuke Takeshita, and Mark Briscoe. Mm-hmm. And Okada, the former leader of Chaos, Orange Cassidy was in fact inducted into Chaos by Okada. Mm-hmm. Mark Briscoe, the Briscoes they weren't, I don't believe they were formally members of Chaos, but they always teamed with Chaos when they were in New Japan. And Hiroki Goto tried to recruit Konosuke Takeshita to Chaos a couple of weeks ago during the G1. So this was in a small way Okada kind of haunted by the ghost of Chaos past and future. And as a New Japan nerd, that amused me.
So I'm Okada put forth 10% effort last night, which 10% Okada is still pretty damn good.
He's so damn good. I'm a big Okada fan. I think he's pretty fucking great. And it's just so funny that he so effortlessly went from being the best big match wrestler of all time to just a comedy dickhead heel, and he's so great at it too.
I gotta be honest, as much as I think in a lot of ways this is a waste of poor Okada, I am loving the whole heel run by him, and you know when he does the Rainmaker pose, instead he just flips off the crowd.
And I think a lot of people they're upset that they're not getting New Japan Okada. And when Okada signed with AEW, I was a little leery because I'm I don't know what they're gonna do with him. I don't think that version of Okada is going to work in this context. And that like Okada is he's like a kind of a natural character heel anyway. And he's just such a fantastic dickhead. It would come out at times in New Japan that even though he was well liked, he could be a massive dickhead at times. And just they put
And welcome back.
anyway. As I was saying,
Okada's
before
great.
I was so rudely interrupted, Okada's great.
Holy fuck. So, for those who are, I mean, I imagine you're still with us because where the hell would you have gone, right? But, oh my God. So, suddenly, Trey's talking about Okada, and my computer is to say that now, it must close down entirely. And I have never seen my computer close so quickly in my life. It was like, all of a sudden you're talking and a blue screen of death appeared. It said, your computer must close right now. And it did.
Your computer sucks.
I need a new computer so fucking bad. I think I need to get that before I actually get my Xbox Series S that I've been waiting months to get. But, all right. So before this fucking thing goes to hell again, let's jump into it and talk about some Mid-South wrestling. Let's go to Bill Watson and Boyd Pierce, and they're going to do the intro of the show.
Wrestling fans, and welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, and we have a lot of exciting action coming this week. The Junkyard Dog will be in the ring against Devastation Incorporated, 420 pounds from Atlantic City, New Jersey, King Kong Bundy. Tim Horner takes on Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer. The Road Warriors are here, and Bill, a wild battle this week is going to be between Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Ted DiBiase.
Well, you can see the crowd is riled up already as Bundy is waiting in the ring for the Junkyard Dog, but the thing that bothers me is Butch Reed, North American champion, still in a contract dispute with Grizzly Smith over wrestling here on TV. He said Grizzly's not giving him tough enough competition, that he's beat all the competition. Of course, that's easy to say when you don't want to wrestle him. But he's not here. Akbar's not here. Where is Kamala? What's happening? Because you know Ted DiBiase as well as I do that he's got some joker up his sleeve or an ace up his sleeve because of the way he challenged Hacksaw Duggan. But I guess we'll all just have to sit tight and see what happens. Let's go to the ring announcer, Jim Ross, for this first exciting main event.
That's right.
All right. So, first of all, everyone's looking exceptionally dapper this week. And even though the show was taped the same day as last week's show, everyone changed clothes because I did go back and, check last week's program. Everybody's wearing a much nicer suit this week than they were last week.
Huh.
In fact, Watts wasn't even wearing a suit. He was wearing, he had a dress shirt with rolled up sleeves.
I prefer Jim Ross as the commentator and Boyd Pierce as the ring announcer over the other way around.
I agree. And JR looked like a very dapper waiter in his white jacket. I think JR implemented another dress code here. But today we're going to get Junkyard Dog versus King Kong Bundy, Tim Horner versus Buzz Sawyer. The Road Warriors are here, and I guess the Road Warriors did wrestle. Never mind. I was about to say they didn't wrestle, but they did, I think. Did they? No, They didn't.
The Road Warriors on this show? Yeah.
They wrestled?
They beat
they did.
Rick Rude and Art Cruz.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was thinking about the angle that they're in. I'm like, wait, they didn't wrestle, but... And then I was like scrolling to the bottom, so I'm like, they weren't in an opening match. They were in an expiration of time match, and of course they weren't. They were in the second match of the show. Anyway, we also had Jim Duggan versus Ted DiBiase in a DiBiase must leave town if he loses match. That's what's called a throwback for the people who listen to this show from the beginning, because everyone used to call him DiBiase the same way they call Jim Duggan Jim Duggan. And shockingly, Butch Reed's contract dispute has not ended in the past 7 days, and so he is still not here. shockingly enough. And
as,
also,
as somebody whose last name is frequently mispronounced, I empathize with Ted DiBiase.
okay, then I gotta question what the hell the pronunciation of your last name is, because I've been saying Wisecarver.
That's right. It's exactly like it's written. But I hear Wiscraver, Wiscanzer, Whiskaker, all kinds. It's
Okay.
yeah.
I did
And
not
it's
think
always
your
been
name.
like, I didn't think so either. Like it's exactly like it's written. I don't know why people fuck it up so bad, but they always have.
Oh Lord, I hope you enjoyed that intro, because that was the only audio we have of Mid-South this week. But
Oh yeah, there were not a lot of promos on this show. It was match.
in fact, you would say there were no promos on the show.
Yeah, I would have to say that.
So Junkyard Dog versus King Kong Bundy was the opener. Bundy took a spinning bump across the ring after a punch to the face. And I'm like, well, if you're going to oversell for someone other than the guy who signs the checks, Dog would be the person to oversell for. This is when I noted that the air conditioning was broken in the Irish McNeil Boys Club, because we saw church ladies with the hand fans in the crowd, and Bundy and Dog were glistening during this match. But then,
man,
we get the finish.
You warned me.
The funny thing is, this is not the award. This is not the worst thing Grizzly Smith has ever done. Award winner this week, because in kayfabe sense, Grizzly Smith had nothing to do with the finish of this match. Bundy hits the avalanche on Junkyard Dog, the #1 babyface, and King Kong Bundy pins him 1, 2, 3, clean as a sheet. However, it's King Kong Bundy, so a 3 count doesn't count. So he had to keep going, and Dog kicked out at 4.5. He cleanly pinned the Junkyard Dog for a 3 count.
Clean 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring.
Like, how does Dog continue to draw for the next year? Like, that just seemed like the biggest fuck up we've ever seen on this show.
And this match had three fucking finishes in the span of about a minute. Because Bundy pinned Dog 1, 2, 3. It didn't count. Max hit the ring. It was a Buzz Sawyer. Buzz Sawyer hit the ring first.
So Dog kicks out, and Bundy lands on referee Ricky Pereira. Dog hits a clothesline, and a new referee runs in, dives over Ferrara. He then watches the Shawshank Redemption before counting to 1, and then Buzz Sawyer ran in for the disqualification. Actually, it's okay, because Dog took care of both of them, and then he pinned Bundy after a 4 count after a thump. I know what I said. Then Max runs in with a diving headbutt to Dog's back, and finally Jim Duggan, Magnum TA, and George Weingroff's massive penis make the save.
Wasn't that great? Wasn't it great to see the top baby faces of the territory all together? Jim Duggan, Junkyard Dog, Magnum TA, and George Weingroff's penis.
This, honestly, I don't know what's a bigger clusterfuck. The finish of this match or my computer?
That's a hard one.
No, that's George Weingroff's penis.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I did love that the referee who ran in took forever to make that first count, because he's obviously waiting for Buzz Sawyer to run in. This match was the biggest exposure of the wrestling business ever, and it's 6 years before Vince McMahon exposed the wrestling business.
Probably not the first time Vince McMahon exposed something, though.
No, Rita Chatterton was 86.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yes,
So yeah, if you're keeping score in my official unofficial record book, the finish was Dog won by DQ.
So it wasn't Dog wins a 2 out of 3 fall match.
Just ridiculous. I didn't even realize it. Like I observed it, and then I didn't even register until we started talking about it. Yeah, this match had 3 fucking finishes in about a minute.
I do love that Dog had to win with a 4 count, even though it wasn't supposed to be a 4 count. Oh my God, this is the worst.
Silly.
That just sucked. And then we got the Road Warriors versus Rick Rude and Art Cruz. Rude stared at Cruz, which made me think he was wondering who he pissed off to get Art Cruz as a partner. Randy Pee Wee Anderson was the referee. And this is, of course, the same Randy Anderson who would be in WCW years later. And for those, again, longtime viewers and listeners of this show, last year when the Rat Pack ran off Junkyard Dog, it was Randy Anderson who came out as the scrawny guy to quote unquote wrestle Ted DiBiase, but it was all a tease because he held up the sign that said S. Lee is Stagger Lee, which is when Dog came back as Stagger Lee. So even though it's not his job, the booking of this match is this week's The Worst Thing Grizzly Smith Ever Did award winner. Because holy fuck, this was not a 30-second World Championship Wrestling squash match, and it really should have been. Rude and Cruz took more than half of this match, and if you thought Hawk couldn't sell in 1989, you should have seen him here. Rude comes off the ropes, and both Hawk and Animal lift their leg in the air and hit Rude in, as Taz would call it, the yam bag region. Art then pinned Cruz after a power slam in a match that was so bad that Bill Watts was speechless for 16 seconds after the end of this match. In case that doesn't sound like much, Bill Watts is never silent about anything. And Bill Watts being quiet for 16 seconds would be like you or I not talking for 3 days. Watts likes to talk. This, like, if this was Rush Hour, he is Chris Tucker to Boyd Pierce's Jackie Chan. Where they did that.
Okay, I'm not gonna say that this is the best wrestling podcast out there, but it is absolutely the only podcast where anyone has ever compared Boyd Pierce to Jackie Chan.
Probably.
So, I didn't think this match was like the sky is falling or anything. It wasn't good. It was just like, so Rude's a Minnesota guy, so the Warriors tried to sell for him a little bit, and then as soon as Art Cruz tagged in, they just whooped his ass.
The sky is falling, chicken licking.
Oh man, I just remembered. I have leftover wings from earlier.
Max versus Rip Rogers. Who is the babyface here?
I didn't think about it, but I don't know. Max we know isn't crazy, allegedly. Watts says that he knows Max from the past, but he can't remember why. Where did that come from?
I don't know. If I had to guess, the Mystic Link has been in the territory before. But let me see here. Let me see what I can find out. Rip, by the way, I'm going to say this as somebody who never had an official match, but I have been in the ring a couple times training. Rip did a really bad job of running the ropes here. He took it full back as opposed to you're supposed to run, hit it with your lat. And he ran the ropes wrong. That's the only time I will ever say I did something better than Rip Rogers. And Max won with a rear chin lock, which they claimed was the camel clutch. It was not the camel clutch.
I wrote it down as a camel clutch, but I'm not going to argue with you.
I mean, I think he tried to do a camel clutch, but like it was just not a camel clutch. We'll say that. Let me see here. So technically I'm wrong. Max was never in Mid-South before this. So sorry.
Max is not very good.
No, he's not.
Which,
Wrong guy won.
yes. Yes. Rip Rogers contributes much more to this show than Max does.
Now, I know we acknowledged last week that the song doesn't come out for like 7 years, but Thunder rolls and the lightning strikes. Tim Horner versus Buzz Sawyer. Boyd calls Horner the popular star. Knock that off, Boyd. He'll give him a big head, and it'll lead to him giving the North American title to a sick child for Grizzly Smith to take the belt from. Actually, I did message you this. This is the one time that, you and I talked about something we're going to talk about on the show. If he would have done that, I guarantee Watts would have broken kayfabe right there on television and went over and beat Horner's ass on TV.
That would have been the worst thing that Grizzly Smith ever did to a child.
Oh my God.
Oh God, I'm going to hell for that one.
But helps hell doesn't really exist.
I know, but it's a. Okay, here's the thing. My wife and I actually had a conversation about this the other day because I was playing music in the car, and the song Delta Dawn by Tanya Tucker came on, and it's got the line, he's gonna take you to his mansion in the sky. And my wife said something about it being religious, and I was like, what? And she went, yeah, it's talking about taking you to his mansion in the sky. And I said, you know what? Because I grew up in the Bible Belt. To me, like, I'm so used to hearing stuff like that like references to God and heaven and hell are just like figures of speech to me.
Mm-hmm. By the way, do you know Tanya Tucker spells her first name with an A?
Yeah.
I just Googled it, so I made sure I wrote the spelling down correctly. I was writing it Tanya with an O, like, Tanya Harding.
Yeah, no, it's Tanya.
By the way, next week, straight from Omni, we're gonna have Larry Labisco and Dusty Rhodes.
Oh, I was so excited. Dusty Rhodes is cool and all, man, but we're gonna have Larry Labisco all the way from the Omni.
I should point out, and this again is something that you don't know about because it happened long before you started on this show, but back in February of 1982, they announced that Dusty Rhodes would now be a full-time wrestler in Mid-South and that he'd be booked exclusively out of Mid-South. And then he has yet to appear on the show live ever since.
Wow.
Like, yeah,
it's so weird. Why would they?
So go ahead.
Why would they say that? Like, why would they announce that? That's so ridiculous.
I don't even know, because they kept it up for a few weeks. Maybe like there was an agreement for him to take over booking. Maybe I don't know, because I think Ernie Ladd was still the booker. In fact, he's still booker now. But that's my guess. And then it just fell through, and he went back to Florida. But
now I kind of want to know what 1983 Mid-South would look like booked by Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty Rhodes would be the North American champion.
I bet that's true.
And JYD would have turned heel by now on Dusty Rhodes.
Anyway, this was a decent little match.
Oh yeah,
Buzz must have liked Horner for some reason because it gave him a lot.
Yep. The finish saw Horner go for a middle rope crossbody, but got cut with a power slam for a Mad Dog win. A power slam, which, by the way, Watts is probably still marking out for in 2024, because it was just.
I will say, on this show where like at least a half a dozen people do power slams regularly, Buzz Sawyer's got the best one.
Yes. Now, considering we've seen Watts mark out for Hector Guerrero diving out of the ring, and now this caught power slam, if Bill Watts was doing commentary for Raw for the past 15 years, how badly do you think he would have marked out for any of the RKOs out of nowhere?
Oh man, Watts would have loved him some Randy Orton.
Oh yeah, like Randy Orton would be a 37-time WWE champion. Bill Watts had been allowed to keep the book since 1995.
Yeah, because like Randy Orton's like a good enough wrestler that I think most people with any kind of taste at all appreciates, but he's not like so super modern that he turns off the old school guys.
Randy Orton, it's weird because like I could not sit here and tell you what the best Randy Orton match ever was, because he doesn't have a lot of great matches, but he also doesn't have bad matches, except like shit against like The Fiend at WrestleMania. Like, that's not his fault. Like, but like if you just put Randy Orton in there versus somebody and tell him to go have a 10-minute match, no matter who it is, it's not going to be a bad match. And but it's
he's
like
one of those guys. He's one of those guys that like I don't think he's ever had a 5-star match, but he's had a shit ton of 4-star matches.
Yeah, it's like I was gonna say, like Randy Orton is the guy. If you need a 3-star match on your card, Randy Orton is going to be in that match because it's almost reliable. It's almost a guarantee you are going to get at least a 3-star match if you put Randy Orton out there. And actually, it's funny because I said I couldn't think of Randy Orton's best match, was probably the last man standing match he had with Triple H at No Mercy when Cena got injured and had to give up the title. Because they did that gimmick where Triple H like had 3 matches in one night. And the last
I thought
one,
for half a second that you were going to say the last man standing match was Edge at WrestleMania, and I was about to quit the podcast.
You would have had computer difficulties. Like that's.
By the way,
I was just thinking about that WrestleMania here, and I was like, because there's matches that wouldn't have been as good in a live arena thing. Like AJ Styles and Undertaker would not have had a graveyard match, and them having whatever a regular match would not have been as good, in my opinion. I think Randy Orton and Edge would have been better in front of a live crowd.
Yes. I would argue that the Becky Lynch Shayna Baszler match might have been better in an empty arena than it would have been in front of a stadium.
Indeed, like I don't want to say that was the most disappointing match because we just talked about Randy Orton versus Edge, but it's like I had high hopes for that match, and
I really liked that match.
It wasn't bad, but I was expecting so much more.
Anyway, so by the way, the program is the Mad Dog versus the Junkyard Dog. So Watt spent this entire match making puns about dogs and biting.
Yes. By the way, and here in the middle of our review of WrestleMania 36, let's go back to Mid-South with the actual main event, which was Ted DiBiase versus Jim Duggan in a no disqualification match where if DiBiase lost, he would have to leave Mid-South. Now, they talked last week about how DiBiase's lost a lot of loser leaves this specific town matches. And I looked it up, and yeah, like he had done like 5 or 6 house show matches where he lost to Duggan in loser leaves this town forever matches, which is kind of makes me curious why this match wasn't just loser leaves town. Why was it like, and this was DiBiase making the challenge. Like, why would he make a challenge to a I will leave if I can't beat you match? Because if he wins, then he's still stuck in the territory with Jim Duggan.
Maybe he threw the match.
They made a comment about how important this match was. So we're giving them as much time as they need. So that's why this match is the 5th match on the show. The big Duggan got tired of being punched by DiBiase, so he started punching him back. The fans chanted for blood, and much like the fans at All Out who chanted for fire, these fans did not get what they wanted. So I was curious if since this was no DQ, does that mean DiBiase can just dive off the top rope time and time again?
I would think so.
Yeah. Now we did.
Duggan lost loser leaves town matches in Lafayette, Houston, Oak City, Tulsa, Baton Rouge, and Jackson.
You mean DiBiase lost those matches?
Yeah, what I say?
Duggan.
Oh, well, you know what I meant.
I did. But by the way, Watts does theorize that even though the stipulation is only DiBiase would have to leave if he loses, he does theorize that Duggan is such a man that he would leave Mid-South if he loses. We continue to have throwbacks to the first couple episodes of this show because DiBiase puts on the figure 4, which the first angle we discussed on this show was how Paul Orndorff and Bob Roop had invented a counter to the figure 4, which is the counter that you've seen for every figure 4 in the past 50 years, which Duggan uses here as he turned it over.
So goofy.
And then we get this finish. Like, motherfucker, what is with the finishes on this show? Outrun the Road Warriors to attack. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I didn't know that we were gonna get the beginning of a great partnership on this show here.
Yeah. The Road Warriors run out to attack Duggan. They hold Duggan so DiBiase could slap him. Outruns Magnum TA and Rick Rude, but they don't help at all. DiBiase loads the glove. Junkyard Dog runs out with a large piece of wood in his hands. However, Hawk and Animal take him out. It is now 3-on-4 babyface advantage, and the heels are winning on them until Duggan spears DiBiase. Duggan kicks all the heels' asses with the large piece of wood, and then pins DiBiase to win. Duggan raises the giant piece of wood in the air afterwards, and a gimmick is born.
What if George Weingroff had come out with his giant piece of wood?
The people listening to this show would have been so fucking confused. Jim Duggan raises George Weingroff's wood in
the minute Duggan laid hands on that 2x4, it was just the sky opened up and a light shined down from heaven, and you heard the angels sing, and it was just something that was meant to be. Duggan in the 2x4.
Oh Lord. So DiBiase, and I don't know if Cage Match is 100% correct about this, so I guess we'll see in 6 months. But according to Cage Match, DiBiase comes back to wrestle one TV match in January of '84 against David Sammartino, of all people. But other than that, he's gone until October of next year.
You know, I looked at that and I didn't notice the match from January. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because like David was here in January of '83 for 2 weeks, and then he left, and now he's going to come back in January for another week. It's like, is Vince giving him vacation and, you know, he's taking it in New Orleans?
It's really, it's pretty bizarre. I don't like, he's gonna, like, he makes like Tulsa and Oak City and New Orleans a couple of times, but he's not going to be back in the territory proper until next October. So apparently we're going to see him in January.
So Bon Voyage, Ted DiBiase, like, other than Dog, he's the last person left who's here in December of '81, and you know, it was time for him to go. Like, you know, you've only been watching this for 3 or 4 months, but even you could say that it's like, it's time to wrap him up here.
Yeah, and that's what the business was meant to be. You do your stint in a territory, and then you go to another territory. So DiBiase's going to go. He's mainly for the next year going to be splitting his time between Georgia and Japan.
Yeah. Well, we then get Crusher Darsow and his baggy Daisy Dukes and rope belt versus John E. Rich with his 2 wins over the tag team champions that ultimately didn't matter. Watts lost his voice during the main event match, but somehow would not stop talking despite it. Seriously, remember the 16 seconds he remained silent earlier when he had his voice? Now, when he doesn't have his voice, he doesn't give 1 second of silence. Darsow wins with the over-the-shoulder backbreaker.
Do you think that Darsow becomes a communist because it was the most economical way to get some proper wrestling gear?
It's very possible, and I don't want to spoil anything for you, but he becomes a communist pretty soon.
That low-key the most base thing Barry Darsow ever did.
Yeah. So then we got, speaking of communists, Boris Zirkov and Doug Vines versus Magnum TA and George Weingroff's massive penis. Watts finally taps out here, which is okay because Boyd sucks Weingroff's dick enough for both of them. TA heaved Vines across the ring with a body slam. This match was so exciting that in the middle of it, Boyd Pierce explained that in order to win a professional wrestling match, you need a 3 count, which is news to the people in the opener of this match. But, maybe that's why.
So
maybe the show got taped out of order, and, Boyd, this match was after the opener, and Boyd explained it during that match.
Maybe. So, Boyd started before the match, called this a tag team event of Magnus proportions. And
Nick Aldis approved.
Yeah. So Doug Vines looks over at this goober holding up a Soviet flag, and you can just see on his face that he's like, what the fuck have they gotten me into? He might be a heel, damn it, but he's an American heel. And this is where I wrote that forcing poor Doug Vines to team with Boris Zirkov has to be the worst thing Grizzly Smith has ever done.
Poor Grizzly Smith. He's taking it in the ass this week. No comment.
I was trying to think of a comeback, and then I was overcome by the guffaw.
By the way, Magnum pins Vines with a belly to belly. This is not only a show that you should immediately forget about, it's a show that Bill Watts would like you to forget about.
It's a show I've already forgotten about.
Then we're going to go 190 miles west to World Class Championship Wrestling. Let's go to the intro with our good friend Bill Mercer.
Welcome to World Class Championship Wrestling. From the most famous wrestling arena in the world, the Sportatorium here in Dallas, Texas. We have a tremendous double main event featuring Michael Hayes of the Freebirds and Kerry Von Erich. Michael Hayes, of course, the fabulous Freebirds. Here's Kerry Von Erich of the Von Erich family. And the other half of that double main event, Chris Adams, a gentleman from England, is challenging for the American Heavyweight Championship owned by gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. Those are our 2 double main events. And we have a tremendous wrestling card for you on World Class Championship Wrestling, starting next with Johnny Mantell and Buddy Roberts on World Class Championship Wrestling.
So if we have 2 double main events, does that mean we have 4 main events?
Oh, man. The people who shit on AEW for every little thing they do are going to be awful mad about that.
Why is that?
What pay-per-view was it earlier? Double or Nothing, where they were advertising a triple main event and people were being so dumb about it. And I'm like, dude, like, wrestling promoters have been billing double and triple main events for literally like 70 years. And
I was going to say,
never heard anybody complain about it until AEW did it.
Like, yeah, Tony Khan's the first person to ever do that. Literally my earliest memories as a wrestling fan is the build to WrestleMania 8, where they said over and over again, it's a double main event.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tony Khan invented the multiple main event thing. Oh my God, WrestleMania 19, the commercials were 4 main events. And then that show did one of the worst buy rates in WrestleMania history, but that's neither here nor there.
19 did?
Yeah, because didn't it go like head to head with George Bush declaring war on Iraq?
Maybe it did.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure if it wasn't head to head, it was like that day or that weekend. So obviously the last thing on anyone's mind was WrestleMania 19. Can I say that we have fucking Michael Hayes versus Kerry Von Erich again?
I did some counting. I have been watching this show for 16 weeks, And in that 16 weeks, counting this week, they have had 3 singles matches, 5 tags, and the match where Hayes seconded Kerry's opponent. That is half of all the episodes I've watched, meaning on average, Kerry and Hayes have wrestled each other once per TV taping.
Oh, Lord. And it's like, I don't know how this feud is still so fucking hot. Because, like, Jesus Christ, I've watched them wrestle every fucking week since we started doing this in March. And, oh my God, I am so ready for a new feud.
When do we get a new feud?
Never? I mean, I know I'm being a bit mean when I say that, but about never. Because, like, even when, like they turn Iceman heel at one point, but then it's still Iceman's part of the Freebirds, and it's like it's still the fucking Freebirds versus the Von Erichs. No matter who the Von Erichs are, no matter who the Freebirds are, we bring in Lance, we bring in Mike, we kill off David, and we still have Freebirds versus Von Erichs. And this is the time that I texted you earlier today. I can't wait for David to die and Gino Hernandez to come in, because that at least will bring us the peak of the territory and we can concentrate on other good shit.
At least in like 2 years, we get Midnight Express and the Fantastics.
Yes, those 2 months when the Midnight Express is here, that'll be fun.
They were there for like 6 months, right?
I don't think it was 6 months, because it feels like it was right after Crockett starts on TBS that they begged off and went to Crockett. I could be wrong, but
I think they were in Dallas. I don't know, 5-6 months somewhere in there, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's possible. But by the way, we're going to get Chris Adams and Jim Garvin for the American title, which is at least a new match, or if it's not new, it certainly feels new. So we get our first match, and due to the sound being warped for this and only this, Mark Lawrence sounded more drunk than usual, which I'd like to know how the sound was only warped during this intro by Mark Lawrence.
Johnny Mantell just warps reality.
Oh, for fuck's sake. It's Buddy Roberts versus John Mantell. And this is what I wrote at the start of the match. Please tell me Ken Mantell isn't booking his brother to not be able to be beat by Buddy Roberts, who is a main event talent. That was what I said at the beginning of the match. Apparently last week, the show that we missed, Iceman took Buddy's headgear and wig. So this week he has a new wig. And it hasn't been proved to me that Buddy's hair just hasn't grown back by now, because it has been 3 months. Although at this point, Kurt Angle's hair hasn't grown back in 22 years, so who knows?
Yeah.
Mantell used what was called an arm whip, which sounds a lot more interesting than what it really was, which was just an arm drag. We passed the 5-minute mark, which I think was a shoot for the first time ever, because it certainly felt like 5 minutes. Buddy waved his arm to and fro, which Mercer said, look what Buddy's doing. And to be honest, I just thought he was telling us that he believed in Joe Hendry, but was fucking it up. Buddy used the Bulldog and gave Mantell some chin nuts, but Mantell is Hulk fucking Hogan, so he kicks out of it. Roberts uses a football-style drop kick, aka a kick to the face, and then Mantell fucking won with a fucking backslide.
Okay, I have several comments to make. Now is not the time, but at some point, remind me to tell the story about the time I met Johnny Mantell. So, first of all, this was a perfectly decent match. As much as we make fun of Johnny Mantell, he's not a bad wrestler or anything. These fucking time limits. I swear, somebody was trolling me in particular with the shit they did with the time limits on this show. Okay, we've established that a 10-minute time limit in world class is somewhere between 8 minutes 14 seconds and 8 minutes and 44 seconds. So this match went 9 minutes and 13 seconds, and I was just furious. And then I actually went back and looked, and they did announce that this match was a 15-minute time limit. All right. Bookmark that. Bookmark that in your mind that this match was a 15-minute time limit. We're going to come back to that later. The other thing that I observed that is nothing but me being a dork. Mercer says that Terry Gordy has been in Japan, but that he's going to come back to face the likes of Bruiser Brody. And funnily enough, Gordy teamed with Brody on that All Japan tour.
See, he's learning Brody's, movements and what he does. So this way, when he comes back and they feud, he can better grapple Bruiser Brody.
It was Brody, Gordy, and Stan Hansen against the Funks and Giant Baba, which I bet was a hell of a match. That was actually the day before. The next day was the Funks against Gordy and Hansen in Terry Funk's retirement match, and Terry Funk retired and never ever wrestled again after August 31st, 1983.
And that was the original retirement match. For some reason,
yes.
I thought it was like an 81.
Yeah,
but...
no, it was that was the forever. Yeah. That was that match.
Yep. Oh, man, it sucks that I never got to see Terry Funk wrestle while I was alive.
Right?
It really, really sucks. Yeah,
it's funny because that match was on my birthday, but it was several years before I was born.
On my 11th birthday, Hulk Hogan pushed the Giant off of the roof of the Cobo Hall.
Wow! So we've been having attempted murders on pay-per-views for years, huh?
To be fair, this would have been more of like, manslaughter, because like Hogan didn't purposely push Giant off the roof.
You can't spell manslaughter without laughter.
I took a second to like spell out manslaughter in my head. Oh, God.
Kevin Von Erich visited a sick child in the hospital.
Yeah. Remember how like in the past 6 months or so, Junkyard Dog has visited 6 children like every other week and it gets reported on the news? We could have used a news anchor doing a voiceover here because Kevin Von Erich visits a sick child and does his own voiceover. And good Lord.
The only thing that I wrote down was at one point, because he was visiting a young man who had been injured in a car accident. Mm-hmm. And he said the young man was having to do rehab on his back. And Kevin said that he knows what it's like to have a back injury because he had knee problems when he was playing college football.
I managed to not notice that. I think because Kevin's voice was putting me to sleep. So Kevin brought this man in a beer. This man was allegedly a wrestling fan, but if you told me he had no idea who Kevin Von Erich was, I would have believed you. And I wrote that Jesus Christ, Kevin Von Erich sounds like he's being held at gunpoint doing this voiceover. Oh, God.
Bad time.
Let's go to Bill Mercer with General Skandor Akbar.
Why are you putting one of your main men of Devastation Incorporated against a very willing but untried type like Mike Bond?
That's simple, Mercer, because nobody else wants to get in the ring with any member of Devastation Incorporated. Now, by now, all of you people know that Kamala, the Ugandan warrior, is unbeatable. He's invincible. Nobody can handle Kamala. But I'm not through with you yet, Brody. We beat you in every particular type of match that you've come up with. Just maybe you could come up with some particular type of stipulation that we can beat you again, Brody, and again, and again. And as for the Von Erichs, I've been hitting and blasting the Von Erichs for weeks out here, and not one Von Erich has come forward with any kind of challenge to any of Devastation Incorporated, and that makes me think, gentlemen, that you got a yellow streak down your back. So what does it take? And look at the Mongol climbing in the ring with the likes of Mike Bond simply because nobody wants to wrestle any of Devastation Incorporated. Get it straight. How about it? How about the Iceman? How about Adams? And how about you, Von Erich? Get that yellow streak down your back.
Akbar and Mongol. Let's go to the ring now, and Mark Lawrence.
So apparently, Mike Bond is the only person dumb enough to wrestle the Mongol, is what I've got from that interview.
Pretty dumb. Isn't Mike Bond the one that's like friends with Bruiser Brody that we heard about once and never before again?
I believe so. I believe that's who Kamala beat at the greatest international Star Wars event that Brody then made the save for.
I think so.
Yeah. So they wrestle. The Mongol wins. I'm not entirely sure the wrong man won, but the Mongol shouldn't have won. Mercer calls Bond a willing, trying, learning youngster. Mongol.
That pause was so pregnant that I thought your computer shit out again.
And here I thought it wasn't long enough. I seriously can't wait to go back and listen to the first half of this show. Mongol misses the knee lift, so Bond, following the wrestler's code, missed the drop kick, and Mongol wins with a power slam that Bill Watts did not mark out for.
The Mongol is so boring. Like, he's even more boring than Max. Like, at least Max is so bad that it's kind of entertaining to watch him be bad.
The Mongol is just the Mongol. Apparently shockingly, considering who ran wrestling for the next 40 years, but apparently the only thing you needed to be a professional wrestler was just be big. We'll figure out the rest. Just be big and we'll get you in the ring.
I will argue to the death that wrestling is so much better now that it's mostly small athletic guys.
Is this something that people... honestly, I shouldn't say this, but is this something people are seriously arguing with you about? But
oh, yeah. There are a lot of... I hate to name drop Jim Cornette every time we start to bring up people who have shitty opinions about wrestling. But Jim Cornette types who shit on, today's wrestlers for largely being much on the smaller side, that wrestlers need to be big. You need to be 6'7" and 326 pounds, or you have no credibility. Yeah, fuck that.
Which is always funny because the next second everyone will call out Vince McMahon for that period of time when he would only sign people who were 6'2" and 250 pounds or more. It's like,
yeah,
why wasn't everyone marking out then? But yeah, whatever.
I just had the most horrible thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that in the next few months Max is going to be here. What if Max crosses paths with the Mongol?
Holy fuck. I don't know if I really want to see that or I really don't want to see it, but I mean... by the way, since we're, talking about Jim Cornette, and we're talking about world class, and if you've never listened to Jim Cornette show, you'll think this is a really big reach to make. Did you see Stephen P. New's comments about Jim Ross?
Yes, I did.
Any questions, comments, concerns, or emotional outbursts?
I wasn't planning on saying anything about it. I did during the opening of World Class. It made me think of it, and it just kind of put me in a sour mood. I don't fuck with Jim Ross, or you're fucking with me. All right.
If you want to read it, it's, the comments are posted elsewhere. It's JR commented about the lawsuit that Kevin Kelly and the boys have against AEW. JR called it frivolous, and Stephen P. New, who is the lawyer of record of Kelly and the boys, had a comment about it. And moving on with our lives, American champion Jim Garvin with Sunshine versus Gentleman Chris Adams with a storm cloud over his head. If Adams wins here, does that mean John Mantell will be his first challenger? So
I would think he would have to be.
So 15 seconds into the match, this was already the best match that we've seen all day long. Surprisingly, when you get two guys who can go, who are both over, the resulting match is good shit. And of course, as I say that, Adams locked on a side headlock. Garvin turned him over for a 2 count that Adams forgot to kick out of. But thankfully for Adams, Bronco Lupic is lazy as fuck and stopped counting at 2. Adams was shaken but not stirred as he made his comeback. He hit a super kick that Garvin exploded out of the ring. Adams then imploded. Okay, it's not going to be funny if I laugh before I read it. But Adams implodes Garvin back into the ring, so this wasn't a Lex Luger Yokozuna situation, but I would have marked the fuck out had we got a count out and red, white, and blue. Oh my god. It's so funny, I can't even say it. Picture the Lex Luger SummerSlam.
With Chris Adams. And Chris Adams in the Little America trunks, too.
Oh my god, yes. And because the Steiners aren't here, like the Von Erichs come out on their shirts.
I am almost to that in my 1993 watching, and I am so excited.
I still remember, oh my god. Are you watching Raw or are you watching Superstars? What are you watching?
Raw.
Okay, so there's no Raw because it gets preempted for the US Open, and that's actually when SummerSlam is that Monday. Watch the Superstars after SummerSlam because Jim Cornette cuts a tremendous promo calling Lex Luger a loser.
Okay, I'll have to give that a look. See. So,
oh my god! So
I want to talk about this match for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
And, so I'm going to give a compliment sandwich, but it's going to be a compliment open face sandwich. I'm going to say something positive, and then I'm going to say the rest of what I have to say.
That's not a sandwich. Go ahead.
I consistently forget that World Class always has one really good match on it, and I'm always pleasantly surprised by it. This was that match that week. This match was very well wrestled. Liked it quite a lot. Best match on either of these shows. Which they stole the show, but it was petty theft. Okay. Now you remember that bookmark that we put in earlier where we said the opening match between Johnny Mantell and Buddy Roberts had a 15-minute time limit? You remember that?
I do.
Match for the American Heavyweight Championship, the top championship in the territory, had a 10-minute time limit. And I believe they did this just to piss me off. And by the way, so as we've established traditionally, a 10-minute time limit is, in the 8.5 minute range. This match, 9:50.
So this was pretty goddamn close to a 10-minute time limit draw.
Very.
This is the closest we've ever been, and probably the closest we'll ever be. Adams tried winning with a leg kick as Garvin came off the ropes, which I gotta admit I marked out for. But Garvin survived, and maintained the title after a draw.
Adams hit the super kick, and then when he hooked the leg, he put Garvin's leg on the bottom rope. So it may be a rare case of had he not hooked the leg, he might have won the match.
Yes. After the match, Adams threatened to assault Sunshine because large, muscular men beating up small women is a babyface move in Texas. But then Adams realized he's British and not a Texan, and he left without beating up the women.
Good on him. Good on him for remembering his moral fortitude.
Yes. So the gimmick, Jimmy Garvin's been an American champion for 3 weeks, and the gimmick was that he's going to defend the title every week on TV, and ignoring the fact that the first week was a non-title match and we didn't see last week's show. In theory, Jimmy Garvin has now wrestled 3 weeks in a row, and let's go to Bill Mercer with Jimmy Garvin to discuss the future of our weekly title matches.
Well, here's the survivor and still the champion. Are you going to do this again next week?
That's enough.
That's enough of this, Bill Mercer. I proved what a great champion I was. And I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. That was too close. I'm the champion. I'm the American champion. And I'm going to stay the American champion. And I ain't doing this no more. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Jimmy Garvin. We'll be right back with Kerry Von Erich and Michael Hayes on World Class Championship Wrestling.
It's my title. And I'm going to keep it, too.
I just loved as they're trying to go to commercial, Jimmy Garvin still ranting into the microphone about it being his title.
So Garvin said that he was going to defend the title on TV every week. Then he proceeded to not defend the title for several weeks. He defended it once, bit off more than he could chew, and said he was done with that. What a fucking great storyline this was.
To be fair, it's not his fault that he didn't defend the title the first week. He was there in the ring and apparently ready to defend the belt against whoever the hell he wrestled. Maybe it was Mike Bond, who's our jobber du jour lately. But, it's possible that was the plan. But it's not his fault that was a non-title match. But,
fucking Ken Mantell.
I don't know. Was anybody fucking Ken Mantell? Was Pam Lawson around at the time?
He gets around.
Kerry Von Erich with Iceman Parsons in his corner, who had Buddy Roberts' first headgear and wig on his head, versus Michael Hayes with Buddy Roberts and his new headgear and wig on his head in the corner. And this may have been the 8th time we've seen them wrestle in the last 16 weeks. But hey, we have a added dimension to this match as Buddy and Iceman are handcuffed together outside the ring. And Iceman claims the reason he's wearing the headgear is due to a migraine, which is what Buddy claimed a few weeks ago when he started wearing it.
So it would have been better if they had been handcuffed together on the floor. What actually happened was they were handcuffed together in the ring and then had to negotiate going through the ropes together. And I thought, might it not have been more practical to handcuff them once they were on the floor?
It would have been, but you think it wouldn't have been that difficult to leave the ring when handcuffed to each other. I guess you could kind of go out at the same time, or one goes out and kind of leaves their arm up and the other comes out, or whatever. But yeah, the hardest thing we've ever seen in this show was these two getting out of the ring while handcuffed to each other.
It was the hardest thing we've seen on this show only because George Weingroff hasn't been on this show.
Mm-hmm. This was not the smoothest Michael Hayes Kerry Von Erich match you've ever seen, which is surprising since they've wrestled 10,000 times since Christmas '82. So you'd think they could do this match in their sleep. But by the way, did you notice Kerry wasn't wearing boots?
I did notice that. I had the thought, I don't know how you read this match. I read it as Kerry was not with it this week, and Hayes was trying his best.
It's possible. Because the first time I noticed was when Kerry had his back to the camera, and I'm like, wait a second, is Kevin the person in this match? And I just I've told myself it's Kerry. Then he turns around and no, it was Kerry. And to make it even better, when Kevin visited a sick child earlier, he was wearing shoes. So they were completely backwards today. And we keep saying he visited a sick child. This person was, if not a fucking adult, at least 16, 17 years old. But, Yeah. Anyway.
I bet Kerry just fucking forgot his boots.
So, did you notice the Iceman shirt?
I did, and I have forgotten, but I remember noticing it.
So Iceman's shirt has the World Class logo on it, and World Class Championship Wrestling, their initials are WCCW, but Iceman's shirt said WCW on it. Yes. In a very WCW moment, they forgot the second C when the shirt was made. Now,
did they have Did they have TBS in Dallas in 1983? Parsons probably a big Georgia Championship Wrestling fan.
There you go. Now, in the interest of fairness, I did notice that later on at the end of the match, the back of his shirt only said World Class Wrestling. So that explains why whomever made the shirt may have fucked up. Because they're like, no, it's not WCCW. It's only World Class Wrestling, WCW. But I'm just trying to give people a pass here that may not deserve it. Hayes used a backbreaker, break me a back. And then I figured the match must have had a 6-minute time limit because as soon as they announced the 5-minute call, Kerry immediately hits a middle rope crossbody that Hayes does not catch and turn into a power slam, and Kerry picks up the win.
Out of all of the Hayes and Kerry matches that we have seen on this show, this was the most recent.
A 4-way brawl breaks out that the Freebirds get the best of, so this feud must continue. And they manage to handcuff Iceman to the top rope, which Mercer did not notice at first. It was so
I didn't either.
I was looking at it, I'm like they handcuffed him to the top rope, didn't they? But Mercer's not talking about it. No one's really pointing or anything. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just seeing what I want to see. But no, he was handcuffed to the top rope.
Yeah, I thought that the baby faces ran the heels off, and then I realized no, they handcuffed Parsons to the top rope, and then Kerry ran off both of the heels by himself.
So then we didn't get a end of the show promo by somebody involved and said it was just Mercer recapping the show and said that next week Brody is going to wrestle Gordy. And that sounds fucking amazing.
That does sound pretty awesome. So now that I have seen what matches aired this week, I can infer what matches we missed last week. And they are the following humdingers. Jimmy Garvin beat Mike Reed, and Kerry Von Erich and King Parsons beat Michael Hayes and Buddy Roberts by DQ. And those are the only other two matches other than the ones that aired today that were listed for this taping. So I assume they must have shown some. Maybe they showed that fucking Kevin and Flair match again, or the
Mexican women's national. Yes. It's possible we got an in-depth 30-minute promo with David Manning.
I did have the thought that it's possible that for whatever reason there was just something that they didn't want to put on the network due to some kind of rights issue, and that's why the show is nowhere to be found.
But it's also nowhere else. There's no torrent that I found of it. There's no the guy that normally posts these things on YouTube didn't post it, although he posts the network version, so I guess that's understandable. But this is and spoiler, I haven't really looked super far ahead, but Peacock doesn't have the usually skips the beginning of the year best of Mid-South shows. So, somehow January is the period where Mid-South loses all their tapes.
Yeah.
Well, so
talk about Wrestle Kingdom.
Oh, I even let's talk about Wrestle Kingdom now. I'm like, why?
No, in January.
Yeah. How about that Zack Sabre Jr. main event match coming up on January 4th?
You think Zack's going to defend the title at the Tokyo Dome?
I mean, unless he pulls a Butch Reed and decides that there's no more competition here in New Japan.
Yeah. I don't know. I watched a lot of New Japan during the pandemic because just there was nothing else to do, and so I have really one of my favorite feuds of the last several years has been Zack and Naito. They just have a really fun dynamic and they wrestle really well together. And Zack is the one guy who can still get a great match out of Naito because Zach's wrestling style doesn't appear or doesn't rely on Naito having functioning knees. So yeah, I hope Zach wins the title, and then he wants to defend it in London, which is like 2 weeks later, and then yeah, I guess it would be whoever. And then that's going to be interesting because we have Wrestle Kingdom on January 4th, Wrestle Dynasty on January 5th, which is going to be New Japan, Stardom, AEW, ROH, and CMLL. So we are probably going to World's End is like December 29th or 28th. So they're going to be
like
we are going to be really last minute getting some of the stuff for that Wrestle Dynasty show figured out.
Honestly, I don't know. I think I don't know. I'm not foreseeing like a whole bunch of show to show storyline kind of thing. Like I feel like they will announce the matches and there might be like an angle on, the World's End show. So I mean, to be fair, there is an entire week between the two shows because World's End will either be the 28th or 29th, and then the 5th is the Sunday. So it's depending on what day World's End is, it's either 7 or 8 days, even though Dynamite is New Year's Day. And you just know that, I mean, I'd imagine I don't think they've announced the shows yet, but I have to imagine they would tape Collision in advance and not do, half a company here for Saturday the 4th.
Okay. I know this is a long shot that they would do this, but I have a dream. And Tony Khan, if you're listening to the show, and why wouldn't you be? Listen, for me, who has been there since before day one, can you tape Collision at Cork and Hall?
See, I thought you were going to say just put 2 hours of Wrestle Kingdom on Collision.
That's not the worst idea either.
Because, hey, remember when Access used to put, the New Japan show on that night? Like,
Yeah.
That was
great.
Hey,
you said you wanted to be finished by 8:45. It's now 8:43, 8:44. So we did it.
All right. So we're going to wrap things up here because in 15 minutes, I got to talk about some TNA. And my God, that show sucks. But do you have anything else you want to say to the fine people listening?
I don't guess. Bye. Love you.
Love you more.